All right, cool. So I'm sitting here with Donnie Collins.
Right.
So explain kind of quickly what you're doing, and we'll go more in depth.
Okay, well, we want to put in a 20,000 square foot cannabis research and growth facility right just north of the county line.
Okay, so you basically want to have medical marijuana grown here.
That's right. That's right.
So I kind of can go different directions. What's the reason behind that? Because I'm all for it. Like, I grew up here where it was like, no, marijuana's a drug.
Right.
You're probably the same way.
Absolutely.
Marijuana, no, you do that, you're gonna go to jail. But then you realize it's a plant. It's not crack. It's not meth.
That's right. Well, it's been kind of a journey for us.
Okay.
It started off. Well, first off, I'm a disabled vet, so I've
Appreciate your
got
service.
no problem. I've got a couple different specific injuries that basically make my body react.
Okay.
Up to different pain disorders, that kind of thing. So, my wife is a nurse by trade. I'm a counselor by trade. But with my injuries and all that, I was stuck at home. Well, my wife we decided through a conversation for her to come home, that we'd do something together. And that's kind of, well, I guess the people need to know we have a feed store down in Saussure, and
Okay.
and we have a produce market here in Wiggins. And so that's kind of what led us into being entrepreneurs. As part of that journey is I still go to physical therapy a couple times a week. I deal with all that nonsense. But a couple years ago, my wife started having the numbness and tingling in her hands and feet, and then it progressed into burning, and then moved up all over her body. And through like a year worth of testing and going back and forth to New Orleans to Ochsner and whatnot, she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and so she has chronic migraines and deals with that kind of stuff. So anyway, being a veteran, especially when you go to the VA and whatnot, they want to prescribe you all kinds of narcotics,
Yeah.
and I'm just not that guy, and I don't want to be addicted to anything. And so I go more towards natural healing. I use tinctures. A little plug here for Blue Boy Herbs. They're awesome.
What is that?
Blue Boy. I think they're out of I want to say Picayune, somewhere over that direction. But they make tinctures for arthritis, for anxiety, for all these different things. And I started using them, and I was able to come off 90% of my prescription medications.
Right.
And so the whole natural approach is, where we're going. We had someone approach us about basically trying marijuana to help with my wife's and my pain. And
Smoke it, pop it,
whatever.
whichever.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to use it, but
Yeah.
they approached us about it, which piqued our attention. And so we started researching it, and my wife and I both have a long line of addiction issues that run through our families, and so it's not something that we generally jump to. But when we started seeing and researching it and seeing it, like seeing kids with epilepsy in the middle of a seizure be given a small dose,
And they're done. Yeah.
and they just within 30, 45 seconds their seizure stops. Or you've got people with cancer that can't eat,
Right.
and they're just nauseated and in pain, and this helps with all those issues. And you've got people with anxiety and PTSD, and so we became advocates of it. We were approached by investors, basically, because Mississippi isn't we had the Initiative 65, but then you've got legislators.
Right. So it didn't pass.
Well, it passed.
or did it not?
It passed.
Okay.
We voted it in 74% on the ballot.
Right.
The issue is that the mayor of Madison County is saying that, and I'm not exactly clear on the whole process, but something to do with how signatures were collected, or how that feature was approached was not correct, and so she's throwing a bone to the Supreme Court, saying this isn't even legal. She's the only entity in the state that I know of that actually pushed against this. So
Well, you're always gonna have that one person.
that's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. So leading into where we are presently.
Yeah. Right now. Yeah.
Okay, so what's kind of been interesting about this whole thing is that because of the legislation, we don't know what path we're going to have to take in terms of starting up.
Okay.
So if it goes to Initiative 65 and the Supreme Court says it's legal and it goes, there's clauses in Initiative 65 that state that municipalities can't discriminate against cannabis businesses.
Okay.
So, if you come up to the code department or to the board of supervisors and say, hey, I want to put in a dispensary, I want to put in a grow facility,
They can't deny that.
they can't deny it.
Right.
If Initiative 65 doesn't pass or doesn't pass the Supreme Court, that's kind of the issue that I'm
It's gonna
having.
remain air quote illegal
No. Here's okay. So
for stores and dispensaries and stuff like that.
actually, no.
Really? Okay.
Because Mississippians voted on it, and because it's on in our state constitution, it has to be legalized.
Okay.
The problem is that we have a number of, and I don't want to come off as anti-government, because I'm not.
Okay.
But there are a number of state senators that, I'll say that Senator Blackwell from North Mississippi submitted a bill through the Senate, but they made it to where small business can't participate. They said that you had to have $20 million in assets. $10 million of it had to be liquid. $250,000 licensure fees. I mean, this is absurd.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's absurd.
If that's true, you can only name a handful of businesses that can do that here in Mississippi.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
Everything here is small town.
That's right.
Mom and pop places.
We're 50th in the nation as far as gross income.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's
you can't sit there and name McDonald's. You can't do
That's
that
right.
because there's no businesses that started from the ground and that made it all the way to $25 million.
That's right. That's right. So my question is, I've had the opportunity to have conversations with a couple of these representatives, and I'm going, on this issue. Okay, we'll go to a very controversial subject. We'll go to the state flag. Okay, so I'm in support of change. I'm anti-racism, all that.
Sure.
But I also believe that the government was set up so that the representatives represent their constituents. Okay.
Got you. Yeah.
So the issue with the state flag that people got so upset about was not necessarily that we changed the flag; it's that the representatives took the right of the people to speak on it away. Okay. So we had I had conversations with state representatives around that time frame, and I was like, "Why did you take the people's voice away?" And they're like, "Well, we want industry. We want Mississippi to progress. We want Google to come. We want this to come. And if we keep our state flag, they think it's racist and they don't want to come." Okay, well, we moved past that issue. Now we're here. Okay, these same state representatives that supposedly are all for industry and all for Mississippi growing are voting yes to this bill. And I'm going, how can you argue with me that you want industry to be in Mississippi, but yet you're voting on a bill that hedges the market against every small business in the state? So what's really your motivation? That's my question. What's the motivator behind, okay, right now what's happened, Senate Bill 2765 is the alternative to Initiative 65. That's the bill that originally in the Senate they wanted all these high charges and regulations.
Okay, so explain what those are for people that's not in Mississippi that are listening.
Okay, so they wanted extremely high entry fees is essentially what it is. The threshold or the gauntlet to get into the industry for growers was just absurd, and even for dispensaries when it first started. Well, the bill progressed through the Senate, through their process, and by the time it got kind of to the end of that process, before it went to the House for the House to vote on it, they had gutted the language of the high fees and all that because people were coming to them saying, "Hey, you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing?" So it went to the House, and I love our House. The representatives there, because they literally said, the people have spoken, so why are we even discussing this? So they took that bill and they gutted it of all the ridiculous language and made it mirror Initiative 65.
Right.
And so they're saying, because what the senators that introduced the bill said was, well, we need an alternative to Initiative 65 because if Initiative 65 fails at the Supreme Court, we need something in place.
Yeah, something like a backbone.
And the whole thing that they ran on was it's for the people. If you don't vote on this, you're not for the people because the people need medical marijuana. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
The people are going to have medical marijuana. The thrust of everything you're doing isn't about that. The thrust of everything that they were doing was about corporate entities and huge investors and people that are not average Mississippians. You know what I mean? So the thrust of the bill was not, quote unquote, to support Mississippians. The thrust of the bill was who's lobbying and who's giving you kickbacks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I see the medical marijuana thing, and mostly here it's people that are 50 and older that kind of disagree with it because they're set in their standards of
Absolutely.
disagree because this is wrong, this is a sin, this is wrong, this is a sin. And then you got people 49 and younger that are like, who cares? If you're not doing, and here's how I say it. Like, for example, gays or transgenders. I'm like, why do I care? Is it bothering me? Am I going to lose sleep over Joe Bob down there on 5th Street, change his name to Jenny Bob? I'm not going to care.
That's right.
And
That's right.
Like, that's how I deal with controversies. Is like, what's the most recent controversy? Like the Looney Tunes thing.
Right.
They took the skunk.
Pepe Le Pew.
Out of.
That's
and
right.
I'm like, okay, people that are throwing a fit, are you literally gonna lose hours of sleep worrying about this? If not, shut up.
That's right.
Like you know, and I hate to be blunt, but I'm just like, people that are complaining about that are also the people complaining about other things that that are bad in the country.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does. Actually, I have found. I've had conversations with several older people, and a lot of them support it. And I think
Really?
it's
Okay.
and I think the reason why is because as you age, you start to have all these ailments that you didn't have.
yeah,
And so they're like, man, if I could just get off my prescription this or my prescription that, and
Yeah.
it's cost a fortune. And that's another thing is the government is, I mean, pharmaceutical costs, if you don't have insurance, are insane. My wife, one of her, she gets infusions now for migraines.
okay.
One dose is $1,800. One
Yeah.
dose.
Yeah,
She's got a little pack of
yeah.
8 pills that cost $900. I mean, it's
Crazy.
absurd.
It's like if I didn't have insurance, I wouldn't be living in a house because you'd have to pay for your, like.
That's right.
Like you mentioned, you didn't want to get, hooked on pain medicine. Like I was hooked on this anxiety and depression medicine.
Sure.
And then it was like once the doctor took me off, they're like, I don't know why you're on this because it's not working.
That's right.
And so they like took me off of that, put me on Xanax. The thrill of downness from that. I explained it kind of, I don't know if you've seen it, but like Walk the Line, like the movie Walk the Line, where he's like digging the button in the mattress.
Right.
That's exactly like, and it felt like I was getting off the highest drug of all. It was like you lose a sleep, you're not eating.
That's right.
And it's like, I've never done marijuana. I'm unsure about it because it's just, you're setting your way because I was told my whole life it's wrong.
That's right.
And now my sister, she has this disease where it's called CMT. I'm not sure what it is, but like she loses, like she had to have like reconstruction foot surgery on both of her feet, and then it's something with ligaments and stuff like that. So like
Right.
she can't be on her legs all day long
Right.
because if so, the next 2 days she'd just be up in the bed, and the doctor was like, medical marijuana. No, we're not doing that. And I'm just like,
Your sister said that?
no,
Or the doctor said that?
The parents. My parents.
Oh, the
were
parents.
Like, my
Okay.
parents were like, no, I think we're gonna give away on medical marijuana. I'm just like, wait, so you prefer her to be in pain and take pills every day when she can have one joint? I'm just being blunt. You can have.
Well, and see, that's the
just like, what are you doing?
what you just said is the issue.
Yeah, I know.
It's the perception.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're right,
Because
right,
okay,
100%.
so here's the deal. My wife and I were able to go to Oklahoma last week for 5 days.
Yep.
We were able to meet with processors.
So that's what y'all were doing over there when
Yeah.
you texted me. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Dispensaries, growers,
Yep.
not just from Oklahoma. These people from California or Colorado, Nevada. And so you get to go in these different places. Well, when we went into one of the processing facilities, they had what's called RSO, which I don't even remember. It's named after somebody, but they created this oil that actually fights cancer. It's so potent. Okay.
Okay.
It's a concentrate.
Okay.
You can take cannabis, either just the raw plant, or
Yeah.
you can condense it down to this
The
oil,
grain,
or
yeah,
you can,
okay, sure.
or they can process it and make it into gummies,
Sure.
or whatever. You can literally take it like a pill. You can eat a gummy bear before
Yeah.
you go to bed,
Yeah.
and by the time you wake up, you are just like you and me talking and functional and can drive and all that. So it's this conception that people have that are uneducated about it, that you have to sit around smoking a joint all day.
That reminds me, I was listening to a podcast, and it was kind of the difference between driving while high on marijuana versus driving while intoxicated on alcohol. And it was like a 95% drop, because when you're on alcohol, you're high. You're the flight, and you think you're going to go the fastest you can, and you're reckless. But with marijuana, you were taking your time, precautious, because you just didn't know kind of where you were at the time. Besides alcohol, it makes you feel like, oh, I'm this way, that way,
Right.
And it was like, so people that can say, well, I'm going to go out tonight, I'm going to get drunk, are the same people that are like, well, I can't get up tomorrow morning and smoke a pot or take a gummy or take an edible and go to work because it's like,
I'll tell you
it
this.
doesn't make sense.
This is what's interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to name the politician.
Okay.
Okay, but if he's listening, he knows who he is. Okay.
So, I doubt it.
Okay. So my wife and I one day, because of the feed store, we had a
What's
lady.
the name of the feed store?
Serendipity Farm Company.
Okay.
All right, and so well, we had a customer that her sister actually got into an accident and a horse kicked her in the jaw. On that, just a freak accident. The horse is usually gentle. Anyway, she had massive amount of surgeries and this, that, and the other. Well, anyway, they had a fundraiser barrel race for this woman. Well, we talked to her sister and she said, well, meet me at this. If you're familiar with our area, we have what's called the beer store. They're like, meet us at the beer store, and
Which, for those that are listening, is just one designated spot with one little gas station that has the beer in one designated location.
That's it.
On top of a hill.
it's the beer store. I mean, you go in there and get beer.
And we got one here.
We got jerky in there, whatever.
Yeah.
And usually, actually, I'll go in there and get the jerky because it's incredible. But so we're sitting there waiting on this lady to come pick up the feed for the donation.
Okay.
And one of our state representatives pulls in the parking lot. And he goes into the beer store and he gets 2 suitcases of beer. And I don't even remember what brand it was, but he comes out toting his beer, both one in each hand. And he walks up to our truck and trailer where we're sitting there. What you got going on? So we told him while we were there, and he's like, okay, well that's neat, and y'all have a good day. Well, he walks off. Okay, well that was years ago. So when this issue of medical marijuana came up, he literally got on his Facebook page and on public platforms and said, if you vote for medical marijuana, you're not a conservative.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you're not a conservative, you're not a Christian,
Right.
You're not this and that and the other.
Yeah.
And my wife and I literally looked at each other and I said, this is the same guy that walked out of the beer store with 2 suitcases of beer. And that's the stigma.
Yep.
That's the stigma that's on this. Is like you can't. It's insane. It really is.
I don't want to get into the Christian realm or because a lot of people are going to complain, but it's kind of. I grew up in a church which is right up the road.
Right.
And it was the same way. It was like these people they sold beer in their store, which was their number one seller, and the people were like at the church, if you don't stop serving beer, you're not allowed back at this church. And I'm like, what kind of Christian are you to say?
That's right.
It's not like they're drinking it. Who cares if they're selling? Don't go to Walmart.
That's right.
Don't go to Dollar Store because they serve beer. Who cares?
How about your? And look, I'm a Christian,
Yeah,
so I'm allowed to talk about this.
Me too.
But
Yeah.
you, the same people that are criticizing.
Right.
Are the same people that are, and look, I love people, but I'm gonna be real. Let's be real here.
I hate people.
You're the same people. No comment, right? But the same people that are 80 to 90 pounds, 150 pounds overweight, that are going to the buffet after church on Sunday, after they just sat there shaming people, and I'm not getting into all that. But look, what I'm saying is, and this is my position on that as a Christian, if someone has access to a product, let's not call it cannabis or let's not call it marijuana. If someone has access to something that has minimal side effects, that is affordable, that will literally treat their condition, why is it bad for them to take it? If they're not out driving the roads while they're under the influence, because I do believe that you shouldn't do that, okay? If they're not hurting people, if it's not hurting their body, okay? It's
their mental state of what they've been taught.
That's right. It's a stigma.
That's the answer. It's because
it's a taboo.
That's like curse words.
That's right.
They're just words.
Right.
Nobody considered them curse words until somebody said, "Hey, that's a bad word. Don't say that."
Right.
And now it's like, because for me, I grew up in a Republican family, and this year I voted Democrat. I voted Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Not being biased, I believed in his product more than Trump's. That was just what I thought. Dude, you won't believe the backlash that I got from my family because they're like, "We're Republican. You're gonna vote for that Antichrist?"
Right.
You're gonna, and
Right.
I'm like, and then I get like chronic asthma.
Okay.
And so Monday I'm going to get the shot.
Right.
They're like, well, when you break up brain dead, I don't want to hear nothing. And I'm just sitting there like, and then it's like, wait a second. If this was the cure to cancer, you're telling me you wouldn't go get it? And they're like, well, it just hasn't been tested properly. Then they're not. Why are they putting it out if it hasn't been tested?
Right.
It's like marijuana. It's like people have been doing it for centuries.
Right.
Since the the Roman empires were smoking pot. Well, probably differently, but they were smoking some type of marijuana.
Right. Well, I'll tell you this.
It's not have you seen one person OD on marijuana?
Actually, there are no recorded fatalities.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Ever. It won't kill you. I mean, you'd have to. I read it one time.
I'm sure it could cause yourself to kill. But I don't know like I said, I've never done it.
It's an impossible amount
Okay.
that you'd have to consume. I mean, it would be you would
Mount
throw
Seth
up and
Road
become
would
you
have
would
the
throw
smoke.
up and become nauseated and incoherent before you ever got to that point.
Got you.
You know what I mean? But just for the record, we can differ on politics.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
But no, and that's fine. And I'm not here to talk
No,
about
I'm not
that.
either. I'm not.
Yeah, but no, I understand. And my daughter, actually, my oldest daughter, is has a presidential scholarship up at Southern.
Really?
She's a sophomore and she's already like a teacher's assistant teaching labs and all that.
Okay.
And she voted for Biden. So
Okay.
we did.
But
my
you
wife
don't hate her just as
no,
much, do you? See,
no,
that's my point.
no.
And I'm just like,
you have the right to
see,
make
and it's like
your own
you
decisions,
she has
right?
the respect for you to vote who you want.
That's
And-
right.
And if she was against medical marijuana, who cares?
That's right.
But if you were against it, if she was doing it, I'm pretty sure you'd love her just the same, and you wouldn't hate her
Absolutely.
because you have an opinion and they have an opinion.
Absolutely. She actually came home. We have a 15-year-old and one that's fixing to be 13,
Okay.
and a 2-year-old that we just adopted.
Okay.
2-year-old stayed with Nanny, but she drove down and stayed with our younger daughters because she's 20, fixing to be
Yeah,
20,
okay, yeah.
while we went to Oklahoma. So we have that relationship. Of course, there was some dialogue there, but it wasn't. You can't come home. You're bad because you voted for Joe Biden, or it was. I love you. Right. You have the right to vote that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the right to vote that way. You have the right to get treatment any way that you can get treatment and you can afford it as long as it helps you. I mean, who am I to say? Who am I to say? Who are you to say?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is something that has been much needed, actually. And I tell you, the thing that people don't realize is it's not just like, oh, well, the government or the pharmaceutical companies are pushing against it. And the pharmaceutical,
Right.
It's not just pharmaceutical companies. You got to think, before it was ever legalized in the United States, there was still marijuana. I mean, there's marijuana at Woodstock, and before.
It's the same.
You know what I mean? So,
the-
but the thing is
yeah.
that it was the drug cartels. It was coming out of Mexico and all these places coming into the United States. So it's not the pushback and the media attention. And you think those people don't feed in money to media and they don't feed in money to
Right.
politicians to do this? They do.
Yeah.
But it's
100%.
the stigma is something that has been intentionally placed so that people would be deterred from it. From trying to legalize it. So I'm excited about it. I really am. And and my wife and I really had to think about this before we came out and said, hey, we're in sport. Not only in sport, but we want to put a business here. And so we're actually talking about having 2 dispensaries as well. Not in Stone County, but
Right.
that's part of this grand scheme.
I'm gonna branch it out.
And so we had to, are we prepared for our customers? And as a feed store, we have people that are a lot of older people that might not be in support of it, like you said.
Yeah.
And so we had to really weigh out, what if we lose 20% of our clientele? Or what if, because we actually had customers come in before they ever got the initiative passed. There was a gentleman that just needed to pull in the parking lot. He pulled in the parking lot and he was pulling that legalized cannabis trailer. And we actually had customers come in and said, look, if you support that, I'm not shopping here anymore. I mean, just like that. And I said, look, the guy just pulled in the parking lot. That was before we really kind of got into it.
Yeah.
And that was years ago.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the mindset is, are we advocates enough to where we will stand behind this and even lose customers? And the answer is,
Well, the 20% you lose, there's going to be another 40% that you gain
Right.
because of the positivity that you're. Because it's not like you're trafficking drugs through that
That's
through
right.
that feed
No.
store. You're not laundering money.
No.
You're not.
it's completely regulated.
Right. And-
Everything is regulated.
And I say this, and I had a podcast on this a few weeks ago, and it was like, don't make all drugs legal, but if someone's out there doing coke, it's not bothering you, who cares? Why should somebody that has a coke addiction go to jail for life when somebody just murdered their mother and got 12 years?
I could not agree.
Do you know what I mean?
More.
It's like,
Absolutely.
if they're doing coke and not bothering nobody, they're harming themselves, I don't care. But if they're harming someone else, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I
So
do.
I got a few more questions for you. Going on about 30 minutes here. First would be, where would you find the farmers to farm this medical marijuana?
A lot of people are partnering with people that have done it before from out of state
Okay.
to be advisors or to be mentors or whatnot. Here's what I'm finding to be interesting is people, so I went in the Board of Supervisors meeting, getting back to what we talked about, the initiatives. I approached the Board of Supervisors here in Stone County because I was like, well, we need to find out if they're friendly to cannabis industry or not, because whether or not the initiative gives us the right to be anywhere, we don't want to be in a municipality that doesn't want us because it'll be miserable for everybody. They don't want us there, it'll be problems, just it's stressful. We don't want to do that. So I approached the Board of Supervisors and actually got really good feedback.
Okay.
Very receptive. As far as Okay, so what I didn't know was that, what's her name? The reporter?
Lindy.
Lindy was in the room, okay, when I was talking to the board
She's
of
always there, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
Okay, so literally I met with the board of supervisors. I go on about my business about 4 days later. We have a delivery driver that works down at the store for us, and she texts me and says, "Hey, great job on the article," and I'm like, what article? Anyway, so that's kind of how this started.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So Lindy did an article. Well, people have read that article. It got shared like almost 100 times.
Yeah.
And the kids at my daughter's school down in Harrison County are approaching her, "Hey, your parents, the parents are going to be growing cannabis and stuff." And so people got word of it. Well, the people that are approaching me are everyday people. Okay, like they're people that are like, "Man, I could, if I put together my savings and this, that, and the other, I could actually maybe participate in this industry."
Right.
And so that is actually what kind of fuels me to have these discussions and to I don't even say confront, but it's kind of a confrontation when you kind of get in front of a politician or a group and say, why are you doing this? Because there's people that want to participate in this that you're completely alienating from the process. And this is capitalism, small business. That's what makes America thrive, small business.
Right.
So why would we hedge the market against people that want to participate in this? So that's kind of where I am as far as where the bill is sitting. And one of the things that I definitely want to point out is that we have, I'll say that 75% of our representatives, senators and state representatives are pushing for this, but there's about 25% of them that are pushing for this HB 119. Well, it was SB 2765. Well, now they've attached it to HB 119, and let me elaborate on what that means. Okay, so HB 119 is the law that was passed that legalized CBD. Okay, so this is how far it's gone. Okay, so the Senate introduced this bill, this just crazy regulations. Okay, it went through the process. They cut out all the high entry fees and regulations and all that. Okay, so then it goes to the House. The House completely guts it and makes it look like Initiative 65. Well, then the Senate, because it started in the Senate, so they get the last say, they attached this language, the original language before the House even got a hold of it, to HB 119, which is the bill that legalized CBD.
Right. That's why there's CBD stores here and there.
Right. Okay. So I think it's called Harper Grace. I can't remember her name, and forgive me if I get it wrong. Grace Harper. It's the Grace Harper's Law or Harper Grace's Law, but
okay.
That's what they named it because this little girl had severe epileptic seizures.
Harper Grace.
Harper Grace.
Yeah.
Okay. So she had severe epileptic seizures. So they passed the law on CBD,
right.
and it benefits her. Okay. Well, these senators, it's almost like there's no shame there because they took after it's gone through the Senate and failed the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then a couple senators went home, so they won it by one or two votes. It goes to the House. The House says heck no, to the point when they gutted the bill and it failed, that they actually cheered in the chamber. There were actually verbal cheers from the House in the chamber that it failed because the House realized these people are going against the will of the people. And don't forget, when we voted on this, we had Initiative 65.
Yeah.
And Initiative 65A. Initiative 65A was all the government control and regulations. Initiative 65 is less government control. It's for small business. So we've already spoken on what we want. So the question I have for those senators is why, if 74% of the state has already said we don't want government like extreme government regulations and fees and all this overreach, why are you still pushing for it? Why are you trying to hedge out small business in Mississippi? That's the conversation I would like to have, and it's not that I'm opposed to them, but I would like to hear their rationale. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to the point where you will take this bill after it's already been killed and try to reattach it to something that was meant to help a little girl and other people like her in the state. I mean, to me, that's pretty. That's pretty suspect. I mean, I don't get it.
It's kind of like they're for the voice of the people, but the voice of the people is this versus what the voice
they're
of the people
doing
is for the House. Like it's like the voice of the people is what they want is what they want. If they vote 94% yes, that 6% no can just go climb up a tree. But for the House, it's like no, 100% didn't say yes, so there has to be an argument. There has to be no argument.
That's right.
There has to be no argument.
That's right. There's nothing really to discuss anymore.
It's like if you make a 94% on a test, the teacher's like, oh, it's close enough to 100. You can't do that.
Okay, well, we're paying these representatives to be up there, right?
Yeah,
and
100%.
and they're called representatives for a reason. They're there to represent
representing us in the state.
Okay, so they've been going through this for months now, back and forth over this bill. Okay, what if they took all that energy
Yep.
and we're getting with other states and we're getting with, and I want to say this, there are there is a small group of representatives, and I'll name some names. Joel Bumgar, forgive me if I got your name wrong. Ken Newberger works for Joel. These guys are talking to other states. They're networking. They're trying to figure out what the issues are, so that we have. Their goal is for us to be the best cannabis market in the country. Okay, so I'm not making a blanket statement against all representatives. But there are a select few. It's like, listen to your people, man. You know, and it's like that. It's like the mayor of Madison. I would say that to her too. Like, listen to your constituents. You know, I said that to the board of supervisors respectfully. Okay, like, look, guys, like, this is here. Okay, your constituents voted for this. Okay, we have the stats from Stone County. Majority, like, not even a small majority, want it. Okay, so it's not an issue of your personal preference, or I heard this in church. You know, it's an issue of you're in this public position to represent people and to serve the people that put you in those positions. So what is the discussion? That's where I'm at, is why are we wasting millions of dollars, okay, sitting here arguing about a bill that literally takes money out of Mississippians' pockets? We should be putting money into Mississippi. We're 50th in the nation, guys. I mean,
in everything.
In everything. And that's another thing that Senate bill did, was it was such a minuscule amount of money that they put towards education. And my wife and I are sitting there reading through this, and I'm going, you know, I mean, our prisons need reform and all that, but they've got more money going to prisoners than they do our schools in that Senate bill. And I'm going, you know, like, there's a problem with that. You know, I mean, I'm not a politician, but common sense says, like, we want our state to do better. Let's put it where it is. Let's give teachers a raise. You know what I mean?
I'm pretty sure it happened back when you were in school, but when I was in school, it was always crazy to me when they were like, you have to bring $5 for supplies. And I'm like,
oh, it's still that way, brother.
What am I?
It is still that way.
What am I bringing $5 for?
It's not even that anymore. It's like, if you can buy 10 extra packs of, if you could get 10 extra things of Kleenex, or you can buy 20 extra things of pencils, and it's like, these kids can't afford it, you know?
Well, it's not only that. It's like, if the government would supply more to the school, all you would have to bring is your notebook and pencils.
That's right, and kids having to pay lab fees at school.
That's crazy.
Dude, my daughter, when she was a senior and junior in high school, every time she turned around, Dad, I need $30 for a lab fee. Dad, I need $50 for a lab fee. And I'm going, isn't this government funded? I mean, and I'll pay what I have to pay to make sure my daughter succeeds. But the point is that there's money in our budget that can be allocated to these kids, man. And
I had an argument with a teacher one time, respectfully, and she was like, "You're going to school for free. Make the education worth it." Who's going to school for free?
Right.
Because it sure ain't me, because it's coming out of my taxes, my parents' taxes.
That's right.
And the money we pay in for these fees and this fee and that.
That's right.
Sure, if you're going to go on a field trip, sure, sure.
Right.
But because I need to borrow a laptop at school that the school is supposed to supply, I have to pay a $30 fee to type in one word and print it out.
Right. That's right. And it's even to the point it's like kids are used for pawns, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, they are, and it's sad, and it's even to the point, and this is completely off topic, but it's a good example, is the Biden administration said that you have to allow transgender athletes to participate in whatever sport they want to, or they're going to pull federal funding. And to me, that's like,
I disagree with it.
Why would we sacrifice kids' educations over? I mean, I understand that's an issue when you talk about. But why are we willing to sacrifice the education of kids that are already these schools are already starving? Why would that even be a discussion? You know what I mean? And so I'm not Democrat, Republican, whatever. Let's make common sense.
Yeah.
Let's do what's right for our children. Let's do what's right for our communities. Let's do what's right for our people, instead of pushing an agenda and lining your own pockets. You know, and that can be said for a conservative or a liberal or whoever. Let's do the right thing. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where we are, and we were thrust into the whole political side of it.
Sure.
You know, like, we entered in like, okay, this is going to be great. And probably the assumption that most people have, is assumptions that I had entering in, was that, man, our state's going to do the right thing, and this is just going to be, they're going to have this program, and we're going to get into it, and it's just going to be on cruise control.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding is, especially after we visit Oklahoma, is that there are issues that are in place, like what they call seed to sale tracking, these other government mandated programs. Well, I don't know if I should say it like that. There has to be accountability. There has to be a way to track things. Okay, but some of the programs that they have in other states, and I know they're being considered for Mississippi, cost a tremendous amount of money, and these programs are continuously updating because of third-party integration. And if you don't know what that is, it's like you have the main company, but they can't take care of all the demand, so they outsource to another.
Right. Yeah.
So those are third-party integrators.
Right.
Okay, so they tag on. Well, every time that main entity or one of these integrators updates, the whole system has to update, and there's a lag, and it just creates a huge problem. Well, every time there's an update, it costs money. Well, then, okay, it's business. Okay, things cost money. That money gets tagged on to the dispensaries. Oh, we've got to cover our cost up here as a processor, so we've got to charge more dispensary. Within the dispensary, like, well, we've got to cover our costs, so who do they charge more? The patients. Okay, so there's all these issues that are going on, and it's just kind of like you pick your battle one day at a time. You know, well, right now the most pressing issue is House Bill 119, and it's these representatives that are supposed to be representing people that are still. I mean, it's almost an act of desperation. I mean, to me, it's rather desperate. I mean, it went through the Senate, it went through the House killed it, and now you won't respect that process. So you're using loopholes to reattach it to another bill that has absolutely nothing to do with it. That's already been ruled on. I mean, it's CBD. This is not. We're talking about two different things here. So to me, it's disrespectful to. Especially that little girl and her family, but it's disrespectful to the people of Mississippi who've already spoken on it. You know, so I'm gonna keep pushing, and respectfully, there's a lot of great representatives out there, but there's some, and they might be good people, but it's just, you know, you have to answer those questions to your constituents. You can't tell us call and leave a voicemail, and then we never get called back, because that's essentially what they tell you to do. Call your representatives, leave a message. I mean, I have been told by people in those positions, like, man, they don't listen to their voicemails generally. Like 90% of them don't listen. So you feel like you're being proactive.
Fighting fire with fire.
Yeah, you feel like you're being proactive, but in all honesty, they're just hitting delete, or they don't have time to get to all those voicemails. So that was my question: is, well, how do we actually get in front of them and start having these conversations? Well, here I am with you, and I said it in the newspaper too. Is, you know, you're put in those positions by constituents.
Right.
We would like to know the answer to. We see what you're doing clearly. The question is, why are you doing it? Why are you going against what 74% of the state wants and costing us millions of dollars in the process, instead of focusing on making a program or a process that benefits people once it's already started? Because it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming regardless. So let's focus on doing it right. Let's focus on doing it well, so that people, mom and pops, and people that are dumping their life savings into trying to be in this industry don't get bulldozed once it started. And we can do that.
Yeah.
You know, anyway, I can go on and on about it, but man, it's sad to me, because we've experienced what it feels like to be in a small business.
Yeah.
And these things can just decimate people, and it's not fair, especially when it can be avoided, especially when it benefits the state. I mean, there's such a stigma on, like, we have two businesses, like, and they rock. I mean, they go. You know, I mean, we're busy all the time. We're functional. We manage money. We manage inventory. We manage people, employees, you know, customer requests, and all this kind of stuff. It's if it had the effect that the stigma says it has. You know, man.
Well, man, look, appreciate you being here for this hour. Went longer than I expected, because I honestly had no clue.
And there's so much more information. It's crazy.
I have no clue about marijuana. I don't know anything. Lindy texted me. She was like, "Hey, you should get this guy on the podcast." And I read her article, and I was like, "Don't know much about it, but it'll be the first time for everything."
That's right.
So appreciate you doing this, dude.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you inviting me.